Well, good. I'm really glad to see you, Joe. Joe Conrad. We're going to be exploring today a number of things. We're going to talk about man therapy. We'll talk about the new book project. So we'll get into that in more depth. But to begin, I ask all my guests to just talk a little bit about what I call your origin story, how you got interested in just this broad field of men's health and how this kind of came into your life and your world.
Well, it's great to be with you, Jed. Always enjoy the time that we have together. So thank you for the invitation. And my origin story is, like everyone, is quite unique. I came about my work in men's health um, in a pretty unusual way, I would say. But it started when coming out of college, I knew that I wanted to um, make my mark on the world in some way. I had the opportunity to write for the school paper, so I was writing a lot of interesting articles and stirring up trouble, good trouble. And I wanted to go be a journalist and do something, in that nature. And after college, after graduating, I was fortunate to get a job at a marketing firm, PR marketing advertising firm in Denver, and that's where I started my career. And I learned a lot, and I felt like I had found my calling. I felt like I was really good at marketing and communications, and I learned a lot from my mentor. But I really felt like I was drowning and not doing work that was meaningful. In fact, it was quite the opposite of that. And so I was going to change careers and go in a completely different direction. And that's when a mentor of mine lent me a book called Critical Path by Buckminster Fuller. And I had never knew about Bucky and his story. And it really had a profound impact on me at a point in my time where I felt like, my effort and my energy and my work, does it matter? Am I just a cog in the machine? I was feeling really existential and kind of empty. And just the lesson of Bucky that you certainly do matter. In fact, individual efforts are the only thing that's ever moved people forward. And so it was a great inspiration to me. And that caused me to start an advertising agency focused on doing purposeful work with brands that we believed in 1990, an agency called Cactus. So that's really where my work originally was sparked from.
That's fascinating. As you know, I also had one of those early aha experiences. Mine was a little different, but as you say, we each have a somewhat different story, but sometimes they overlap. And I had dropped out of medical school. I'd gone to medical school because I kind of
Right.
wanted to save the world and wanted to make a mark and wanted to save my father and a lot of things like that. And it clearly wasn't for me. It was a very restrictive kind of this is the curriculum, and I left and went into graduate school in social work. And as I was doing my graduate work, I came in contact with a community of addicts in recovery who were themselves, had reached bottom and were not in good shape, and came to this community called Synanon, and they were very involved in learning about all kinds of things, including the work of Buckminster Fuller,
Hmm.
who, geodesic domes, and they, were. And I met Bucky Fuller at that time in the early 60s, and he came to visit, and I was entranced both by, he was at that time older man, but very vital. And, I learned about his own, feelings of when he reached a point where he wondered whether his life counted for anything. So that was, I didn't know that till you and I talked that we had that in common. And my contact with you, as you well know, came when I learned about man therapy. And this is years after I was working in the men's health field. And I came across this website of man therapy, and Dr. Mahogany, who was, doing therapy a very different kind of way, the kind of way I wanted to do it, the way I was doing it, not, the traditional medical model way. And
Right.
I reached out. I said, I want to meet Dr. Mahogany, and I found out that he was part of your campaign and not a real doctor, but a person who exemplified what you were learning about man therapy. So maybe you could say a little bit more then about how man therapy, came to be and how you got doing that before we jump into the book project.
Happy to. The ripples that man therapy have created are just amazing. And I think, you came across man therapy, 10 years, I think, almost 10 years after we launched it. And so it's been a really great journey. And the way it came about is related to the work that we started at Cactus. In fact, I'm wearing this Buckminster Fuller inspired shirt with a cactus in the middle. It's kind of the genesis of our agency of doing purpose-driven work. So we were always doing a lot of social marketing campaigns, helping people live healthier lives. And then in 2010, we were approached by the health department in Colorado, the Office of Suicide Prevention, and they knew about a lot of our work, and we had done a lot of campaigns with them. And they really turned me on and educated me about the struggles that men were having, especially around the issue of suicide. And no one had ever done a campaign targeting working age men. And so that's really where the work began. And, we started talking to them and we knew it was a big issue. And I felt at this point like maybe we met our match. I always thought that communications and creativity could solve any problem, but, could a website or an ad campaign possibly address such a complex and serious issue like suicide? So I had my doubts, but we approach it the way we do everything else. And our team really, did a great job coming up with a strategy that we thought was really going to resonate. And so we were really looking at it from a professional assignment of, how can we crack this tough challenge of men who don't want to seek help, who believe it's not in their best interest, or they've been over the years just ingrained to not seek help, or it's a sign of weakness. And so, how could we take on that big issue and do it the way we like to, where we really get a breakthrough with a unique concept, bold, creative, really well produced campaigns. And our team just knocked it out of the park. And, in 2012, we launched Man Therapy, Therapy the Way a Man Does It, centered around a website. And as you said, this fictional therapist, Dr. Rich Mahogany.
Yeah, that's what really struck me because my path with these issues, starting with kind of my going in a new direction, was when I was working in the recovery and working with addicts. Um,
Right.
at that time, things were professional by then, and you worked with addicts in an office, and they came in, and you had, and I learned that way being in graduate school. But what I soon came to realize is you got to reach people where they are. And, addicts don't always come into, your office and sit there for, a 50-minute hour while you do therapy. And so me being kind of that, kind of going where the people were, I started going out where people were. And I'd go to bars and hang out and talk to people. And again, professionally, I was told, well, you can't do that. Well, there was an older tradition, the 12-step
Right.
program in AA and recovery. They didn't have people come to their office. They were recovering addicts. They went to where the people were. So I very much resonated with Rich Mahogany and your approach because it felt engaging, it felt real, it felt like, in fact, a kind of approach that could be translated into a online community. Evidently, at least as I started reading your data and finding out this actually worked. It wasn't just glitchy and interesting and fun. You actually had data to show that this approach worked. So maybe talk a little bit about you mentioned the, 10 or 12 years before I even learned about it, which, says that even something effective out there doesn't necessarily reach all the people that it needs to reach, and that's still ongoing. But what it was about once you started doing it that you were able to show how effective it actually was, that it produced results.
It was, just a fantastic experience when we launched the site, and we were very fortunate that the New York Times wrote a feature article about man therapy on the day we launched. So we had hits from 72 countries and inquiries from all over. And I think the reason it struck such a chord is we broke a lot of stereotypes and barriers, kind of like you and your practice. And we wanted to reimagine therapy and redefine what therapy means and let guys know that it's not something they have to be afraid of. It comes in many forms. You don't have to just go to a therapist and lie on a couch. Therapy, there's a lot you can do on your own to take care of yourself and make sure that you're mentally fit. And so we really took this approach of talking to guys the way they talk to one another in a locker room, kind of giving one another a hard time, razzing a little bit. The campaign pushes the boundaries a little bit, using a little bit of profanity, kind of the way guys talk to guys, but we wanted it to be for them and a place where they could feel comfortable. We didn't want to be the head in hand, wife consoling PSAs of the past. And we wanted to do something just different and get guys to laugh. The other thing about using humor, guys often will use humor to deflect a topic that they don't want to talk about. They'll just joke it away. And so we wanted to use humor to like break down their barriers and get them to lean in a little bit and chuckle and then kind of learn more. So man therapy was always about, improving help-seeking behavior, providing really great information about men's mental health, giving people more insight into their own situation through our 20-point head inspection and our proprietary assessment, and then really about connecting men and their loved ones to a wide range of resources that'll put them on, the right path, whatever that might be.
Well, when you see it in action, because I've been in the field a long time, I intuitively knew this is going to work. I didn't need to see, results in writing or studies, but, it's important not only for if you're going to be effective, you got to actually check out because some things that sound like they're going to work, seem like they should work, don't necessarily. So, say a little bit, if you will, about how you actually evaluated the success of those goals to see that, in fact, this approach not only was, different and engaging, but it actually did what you hoped it would do.
Yeah, I'm happy to share that. It's an important part of our experience with man therapy and the platform. And getting that feedback from someone of your caliber who just gets it, that means a lot. And we co-designed it with some leading suicidologists and leading clinicians, and we continue to always try to make the site better. And so the best metric for our success is really because we are a website, we can really track how many people come, where they spend their time, how long they spend on the site, how many people complete the head inspection, how they score, if they connect to resources. So that data allows us to really learn a lot, and we're constantly trying to make the site better because of it. But people would always want, do you have evidence that this is working? You say that you reduce suicide ideation in working age men. Can you prove it? And so we were very fortunate that finally we got a sponsor in the CDC. They funded a $1.2 million evaluation of man therapy over 5 years in the state of Michigan. It was a double-blind clinical study involving 500 men. And the results of that research has been published in two different peer-reviewed journals, but it found clear evidence that we indeed are improving help-seeking behavior and reducing suicidal ideation in working age men. We also tapped into some other finding about anger and that anger can be a big precursor to suicide as much as depression even. So our research has changed the boundaries a little bit of primary care and what's screened for. So that's probably the best evidence that we have that we know that this works.
Powerful evidence. And, that was important to me both as a clinician and a researcher, but also somebody who has personally experienced these issues in my own family. And as you know, my working age father, when I was 5 years old, took an overdose of sleeping pills because he felt he couldn't make a living doing the kind of work that he loved and became increasingly depressed and irritable, as you point out, not just that depression where everything closes down, but he was angry and irritable at others and himself. And, I ended up as a 5 year old, having to deal with a father who luckily didn't die, but was hospitalized at a time when the kind of help that he was given at the hospital was not very helpful. And so coming across man therapy, seeing your results, not only made me feel like this was something I wish my father had gotten, this is something I would like to see other men and families who I work with clinically, and wanted to be sure before I would recommend it or I would pass it on that it had checked out in every way I knew how, not just my intuition that says this feels right because I've got experience, but what data do you have to show that it works? So that all checked the boxes, and I was, excited to see what happened, how it's evolved, and um, it leads me into kind of my next question. And as you also know, I believe we ought to reach people in every possible way we can, and find both new effective ways, as you do with Man Therapy and the website, but also different ways of reaching people. I've done that through, my own direct counseling. I do it through, talks and interviews. I do it through classes, and I've also written, as you know, 17 books. So when I heard that you were going to be writing a book about man therapy, I was both intrigued and I thought, all right, that's needed too, because they're different venues, have different strengths, and a book really brings the information to a wider audience. If it's done well, it can really, answer questions that a website doesn't. So, talk to us a bit about how the book idea came to be and how it's evolved and where it is now.
Happy to. It is just a blessing that this kind of came our way and this partnership. Man therapy has always been about going where men are and doing it in an unusual way. We show up on bar coasters. So somebody might be sitting there having a rough time and they can flip it over and get a little joke from man therapy and it drives them to the website. Or driving down the road and they hear Dr. Rich Mahogany talking about aromatherapy and sizzling bacon and how it can be therapeutic. So we give people a little therapy in their car. So we always like to, have fun with the campaign and it's about creating a bridge and normalizing therapy and making guys realize that, it's not something that just some people deal with. Mental health is not just for some guys. It's really every single one of us is in the pool together. And so we really try to encourage everybody to, no matter where you are, how can you get stronger? And even if you're not struggling, how can you be more resilient so you can be prepared when something sideswipes you that you're not expecting? So um, the opportunity to then take man therapy to a much broader audience and take, what we've built online and with our campaigns and take it into, a book that you can touch and feel and share with loved ones. And so we think it's a really great culmination of our project, and it's a partnership between man therapy and our approach and six different clinical experts. These are really wonderful gentlemen who have written books and are experts on each topic within the book. And so each one has contributed content around a wide range of issues. But really, the book is about encouraging men to play offense when it comes to their mental health, right? The best defense is a good offense. And so we encourage guys to really, find out what's ailing them or, where they may have issues and then taking it head on. And so the book is a way to provide really great information in a friendly, digestible format. It's loaded with lots of different tools and resources and exercise that provide, immediate, effective tools that people can start using and can notice a difference right there. So it's kind of a self-help guide for somebody to learn more about their mental health and really to help them take charge of it. And so
Yeah.
we think it's going to fill a big void in the market, and hopefully it's well received.
Well, I was excited, one, to hear the book, to hear that you would be getting clinical experts involved, and also that you personally would be, directly involved in putting it all together because one, I've written a number of books, and one of the downsides of having a number of quote experts in a book is that sometimes it can lose the voice of a person, somebody who is really the face of the idea. So talk a little bit about your own, part of the book and how you really, at least as I understand it and have, read
Mhm.
and been part of getting the book, together is, your man therapy and the man behind man therapy, I think is a
Yeah.
really significant part of what I'm clear is going to make this book a really, really effective book altogether. But your part, I think, is critical.
You're right, Jed. I think there's no shortage of self-help books when it comes to mental health. There's some, specifically for men that you'll find out there. I think the thing we've discovered is most of them are written by clinicians with a lot of letters behind their name, and there's some fine authors out there, but sometimes it can be a little bit challenging for someone to absorb that, and also to not let their guard down so they're even able to absorb it. And so I think what man therapy is really good at is creating that bridge and communicating to guys in a way that makes it friendlier and easier to understand and more relatable to them. And so I think that's what's the secret sauce around man therapy and our approach. And so we really wanted to create a book that's easy to read. It's very digestible. The chapters aren't real long, but it is loaded with useful information. And so we have written an introduction that really sets the stage for, encouraging guys to really be honest with themselves and do the work. And then the first chapter is called Mental Health. The best defense is a good offense. And so I just talk about my own experience. And, I'm just an average Joe. I don't have a PhD, and I'm surrounded by all these clinicians who do. And I wanted to just, bring my point of view to it. And hopefully that would be something that the average guy could also relate to. So I wrote the introduction to tee it up. I wrote the first chapter to really prepare guys for what the book is all about. And then I crafted introductions to each chapter. So when the first chapter that you'll read is, mental health, the best defense is a good offense. Chapter two is resilience, peace through strength. Chapter three is anxiety, when worry grabs you by the balls. Chapter four, depression. You can't rub dirt on your feelings. Chapter five, anger, training your temper. Chapter six, addictive behavior. Kick the habit before it kicks your ass. And then finally, the last chapter on loneliness, building relationships is a contact sport. So we wrote intros to each chapter to kind of make it a little bit more digestible. And then I wrote an epilogue with just some parting thoughts. But I think together, I think it really is a unique offering. And I think it's going to once again try to push the bounds of what people think mental health is all about and hopefully give people a new recipe for success.
Yeah, I mean, just as you give the summaries and the titles, it resonates. I just feel again that this is the kind of book that's going to be needed. And I want to also mention to those that are watching and will read this article is that the publisher is New Harbinger Press. That for those that don't, know who they are within the field of health and psychology, and they're really one of the most well-known, well-respected publishing houses. And they have a very unique, and I think it's a wonderful partnership because they're very practical. the people that write for New Harbinger. And I'll acknowledge that I've written a book years ago that New Harbinger published, and I can attest that there was a good reason I picked them and they picked me. But the book is really the kind of book that they would do really well with, and that people who are going to get the book not only are going to, in fact, hear from experts like you. You may be an average Joe, Joe Conrad, but you're far from, average in, in your abilities, your skills, your background, and so on. And the partnership, I think, is going to be a really, really, partnership made in heaven for everybody, for men and their families. And um, speak a little bit to the audience that you're hoping to reach. And we know the book will be coming out soon, and we'll be giving people details about how they can find out more about you and the work and the book.
Yeah.
But speak a little bit to if somebody is watching this and they're hearing about it or they're reading about it and they go, so I don't know, is this for me?
Right.
Who would you be talking to? Speak a few words directly to them, and hopefully, yeah, they and millions of others of the thems will be listening.
It's a fantastic question, Jed. Thank you for asking it. I think it's men from all walks of life. When we took this on and when we created the character, we wanted to create somebody broadly appealing because, we wanted to, our target was 25 to 54, but, we know man therapy is relevant to 18-year-olds and 65-year-olds. And so we wanted, and we always seek to make it a big open door and really try to let guys know that whether you're blue collar or white collar, no matter what your background is, therapy and man therapy is for you. It's an open platform. There's no costs, there's no strings attached. It's free for people to come and use the site, and it's helped a lot of people really get answers and take that next step. And so the cool thing about combining it with a book is it's not just a book that sits on a shelf, but it also has a website behind it that's evidence-based. But I think having a book is going to allow us to really push into and hopefully increase awareness for man therapy. And it's really about any guy who wants to just who knows there's things that they're dealing with and issues they're dealing with. Maybe they're not ready to see a therapist. Maybe they've tried and that hasn't worked, but they want to just, take a different approach. And I think it's also for the women in men's lives that care about them, who we know come to man therapy seeking answers. And I think that that's another big audience for this book, for the man in your life. So we're talking about the sisters and mothers and daughters and wives and friends of men that I think are really going to uh, enjoy this book. And it's an opportunity, it's not like giving somebody a self-help book like you have a problem with mental health. It's the tone and the way it looks and feels. It's something you feel like you could give any guy in your life because it takes a really positive psychology approach that it's not just about, the things that ail you and all the problems that you have, but it's about thriving and living your life to the fullest. And so man therapy is all about that as well. And I think that because of that, it makes it hopefully something that more people will feel free and open to talk about and to give the book to one another and bring it more into the mainstream.
That's super. Well, we need to wrap up soon. So tell everybody who will be watching this and reading about it where they can learn, because this is, I think, as I think about it, as you say, it's not just a book, but it's a very powerful book as part of a larger, system that's been going on for years, with a website, with expertise, with ways to connect with, things that professionals can find. So, what's the best way that people can find out about all of that?
Yeah. Well, Man Therapy really is, a leading men's mental health brand. And, we want to continue to be part of that tipping point in society and be champions for men's mental health. And so, the best place to support Man Therapy and to find out about it and to just, enjoy the benefits of it is to visit mantherapy.org. And I would encourage people to just come and experience it and see what the site's all about, and then share it with one another. You'll be able to order the book from our website, but you can also order it at your favorite bookseller for independent bookstores or Amazon or Barnes and Noble and other local retailers. So look for it coming June 1st.
Super. So, before we wrap up for today, hopefully we'll be able to meet again and have some updates on what's going on since once the book is out and available. But any final words you'd like to offer to the audience? If you had, one or two last things to say that you'd like to really plant in people's awareness and their psyche about this work and who you are and what you've been doing that you'd like to leave us with, please share.
Well, my focus, since 1990, has been on doing purpose-driven work that makes an impact and helps move issues and things forward. And Man Therapy, I'm so blessed to have been a part of this campaign. It's the most, I think, successful and impactful work that I've been a part of. And the story is still evolving. What started really as a passion project against all odds, without a budget. There was no way this campaign should have ever came about, but it did. There was a will, there was a way, and it found its way in the world. And the fact that here, 14 years later, it's still not only still around, but growing and has so much potential. So we want to invite everyone to, become a part of it. We're looking for partnerships and ways for people to join forces with us to become part of our network, part of our resource platform. And so we're just excited about where we can take this in the future. We're working on some really interesting projects where we're building CBT tools to help people manage addictive behavior, gambling, anger, tools like that. We're trying to forge a partnership with a beer company, a very quality brewer here in Colorado, to launch Dr. Rich's Mahogany Lager in time for, we're going to save that one for next year. But, putting the message of men's mental health
Yeah,
right in the hand of somebody who's enjoying a beer, and beer, having a beer with somebody can be therapeutic. We know
yeah.
there's issues with that also, but we want to go where people are and just, be champions for therapy for everyone.
Well, this is exciting. I'm pleased to be part of this whole movement. I encourage others to find out more and come join. The party, the good news, the things that we know are needed that are going to help people and going to be things that I know I would be proud of, my father and all the people that I've worked with over the years. So I wish you well for now. We will be, I'm sure, talking again soon. And for now, we'll say goodbye to everybody.
Well, Jed, I've always admired you and your work, and am grateful for you and the commitment and impact that you've had over your career on men's mental health. So
Thank you.
appreciate the time. Thank you.
Yeah.